Thank you for joining us for the Spanish Grand Prix here in Barcelona. The first Grand Prix held here was won by Nigel Mansell after a wheel-to-wheel battle with Ayrton Senna. But who will follow in his footsteps this weekend? Long straights and medium speed turns dominate here, but there's something else to watch out for at Barcelona. The air currents are strong and unpredictable, and they'll be giving aerodynamic components a real run for their money this weekend. Stage is set here in Barcelona as we get ready for 66 laps of the Spanish Grand Prix. And we certainly know what Max Verstappen is capable of.
They've got a fantastic opportunity starting on pole, but can they carry it through to the end?
But there's no more time left. We've got a race on our hands. This is it. It's the Spanish Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and welcome back to F1 Manager. This is episode 17. We're in Spain for this race, and flourish for a change. I'm on the softs. I'm going to be aggressive, and there's an accident just ahead of us involving the Haas and Alfa Romeo. Turn 1 incident. So that's going to put two cars behind us. Albon, responsible on this one, has locked up going into turn 1 and gotten into the back of the Haas, who, besides the Alfa Romeos themselves, was the only one that Sargent was able to qualify ahead of. Now, he's going on a much more aggressive overall strategy of soft, medium, soft. So I cannot afford to keep him pushing very long. As you can see, the tire wear is going to be intense. For Florsch,
Don't worry about it.
Bottas has overtaken him. Great. Not really. He stayed ahead of him. But for Florsch, we're going aggressive on the first stint, but then backing off later, pitting earlier. All of that in order to give her a chance to be competitive here in the early laps. Also, ultralight, 3 laps, 5 kilograms worth of fuel that she's going to have to recover later on, but all in the hopes that she could be competitive for a handful of laps, get some bonus XP in this race. And for now, it is working. Albon just over a second behind, Magnussen a couple seconds down. How much damage they are carrying from this one, I don't know. Penalty, obviously, is going to be enforced on a pit stop, but as for Sargent, all over the back of Sonoda here, partway into lap number 2. I'm going to back off on the tires now, keep pushing otherwise to keep up the position for the remainder of this lap before we then back off. We did under fuel, but definitely not as much. It could be a factor later, but I think from 16th position, we just don't quite have the pace here to really challenge for points today. Oh, that got used up fast.
Copy that.
Okay, that's 2 laps in the books.
DRS. Currently P18. Bottas ahead.
Sonoda loses DRS range to Hulkenberg. That's going to help Sargent stay close to Sonoda, hopefully. We seem to be almost struggling for pace. Flourish is also starting to struggle for pace. Oh, we got an incident. Final turn. Show runs wide. Zhou Guan Yu, and it backs him up towards Sonoda. I think Hulkenberg went by, and then it backed him up to Sonoda, which backed up Sargent a little bit, which backed up Bottas and Florsch, bringing that whole group in a bit tighter. Only one car getting by, but it opens a gap ahead of us, and it tightens our group up. Just lap 7. And already Florsch is starting to fall off this group again. Magnussen stops. So he had enough of that and stops early. The damage he had was enough to force an early stop, and he's out on the hards. I would imagine he's going to have some sort of hard to medium strategy to try to make it the rest of the way, which will be difficult. An extra pit stop for him in the long term could be... Sargent gets around Zhou. battling now for P15 there, and we're all over the back of Sonoda. It would be really nice if we could finish ahead of 2 teams today. It'd be really nice if Hulkenberg has issues and we could finish ahead of 3 teams today. P13 would be wonderful if Sargent could pull that off. For now, he's up to P14 to lead the group, and his pace is probably not as good, which means chasing Hulkenberg might be tricky. How many are on the softs, by the way? Half the field. Half opting for mediums, which wasn't even really one of the options laid out from our team pre-race. So back down to P15 for Sargent with Sonoda going around. I think you'll see that front 2 positions swap on a pretty regular basis. But Magnussen running by himself with damage seems to be quite a ways behind here. Keep an eye on his gap. If he's gaining or losing ground on Albon. Of course, Albon is also carrying that damage and is losing ground to Florsch. Sargent once again around Sonoda here on lap 13. Like I said, those front 2 are swapping on a pretty regular basis. Zhou has fallen off though. Bottas has fallen off. And Florsch caught in that gap in between. Will have to pit fairly soon here in about 6 laps, I think. Progressing to lap 17, it's the Red Bulls who lead from the Ferraris, the Aston Martins, and the Alpines mixed together before you then get to the Mercedes and McLarens battling one another. And then we follow the
tires when you can.
kind of that next window. Florsch already running into her issues, worse on the tire wear than expected. That's because she has that low smoothness that just sees her tires naturally degrade a little bit faster, but we are going to pit in 2 laps for her. Florsch heads down pit road. Go ahead and use the visor cam for a change. At least down pit road, it's not too loud.
Back on tire 1 capacity, please.
Tires are gone.
2.407 for her stop. Definitely not a bad one, though. We
exit.
always want to get inside the 2-3 range, especially as we continue to get better and better as a pit crew. But Sargent now below that 29%, and this would be 4 laps early, but the expectation, he's kind of right where we expected him to be, so we are going to stretch here. We've got the temperature good again. We're just going to have to accept that we are going to be slower for a few laps. Ultimately, the softs are that much faster. The hard is that much slower as a compound, really, that even falling off the cliff on the softs, ultimately, in balance, puts you a bit ahead of where you would be otherwise. You just have to really kind of suffer through a few difficult laps. 3 wide here for Sargent, and he's going to lose both positions, which I certainly don't mind. I don't want to get caught up in a battle or any sort of crash there, as the recently pit stopped Gasly and Alonso fly past, and we drop back down to P13. Last car. Wow, last car holding out. Are we the only ones that are going to push for this soft, medium, soft strategy? Looks like we are alone with this one. Albon does finally pit, serving his pit stop. That's going to knock him down to P19. Magnussen ahead of Florsch, but Magnussen pit quite a bit earlier, if you remember. And is just 3 seconds ahead right now. If he takes an extra pit stop, I like our chances of beating Magnussen today with Florsch. Albon still in the pits, very much involved in some repairs, and we are going to have a healthy advantage over Albon as he comes back out about 17 seconds down. And how much of that damage was able to be repaired? Was it just a matter of a wing, or was there more involved? Meaning, is he going to be continuing to carry that damage and slow his pace down? His car is already only a little bit faster when you include the driver comparisons, a little bit faster than Florsch, not significantly. We're about 13 seconds behind his teammate. 1 second off the pace right now to Sonoda, 2 seconds off the pace to others. It's definitely costly, but the soft, medium, soft thing compared to the hards, you can see how the hards are a full second slower than what everybody else is running. Second a lap. So yeah, we might be losing it right now for a few laps here, but losing an extra second over 4 laps twice in the race means an 8-second loss, but then a second a lap for 20 laps or so, it ends up being a 12-second gain. Right? It's the chicane a little bit, but I get it that you can add a little more speed by straightening this out and make overtakes a little more possible down the straight. Changing tracks to accommodate instead of making cars just possible to follow. So many racing series have no problem following closely. Come up with a new design to make the cars capable of following more closely, and overtakes have not improved, other than Zandvoort, where crazy weather conditions made it possible. But 2.396, so just fractionally faster. Still not a great pit stop time, but 82.3 is still a happy zone for me, so we'll take that. And Sargent comes out in P17 now. So a couple seconds down. We did lose a little bit of ground there. Sonoda, Bottas in particular, and Joe. That was our group that we're riding with, really about 5 seconds behind. But what are they all on now? Mediums that we've been on for a while, and then hards for 2 of them. So Sargent should have a good pace advantage over all 3 and should be able to challenge in the near future. For now, just 2.2 seconds behind. I'm not even going to push. I want these mediums to last a little bit longer if I can, as we already are adding 1 lap to this stint, as I absolutely do not want to pit sooner. I'm going to try to add 1 lap the other side as well and go to lap 49 instead of 48. If we can add those 2 laps in, we can make that last stint work. However, we're talking about 19 laps was the expected versus the 23 that we went, and pushing the first 2 laps. So realistically, that last stint won't be as bad. I don't think we necessarily have to extend. Like, lap 48 would be fine. 33, Albin has caught Florsch, so she has an opportunity to try to defend, and we're going to try to do so somewhat aggressively here for a little bit so she can earn some extra XP. But Magnussen has also just pit early a second time, so he is already, and we've just been lapped, by the way, on softs, so he will 100% pit again, and Albin's actually going to pit again here rather soon, as he's already down to 42% on those softs, and making way for Perez, as we do as well. Meanwhile, Sargent remains about 2.5 seconds behind that trio ahead, having not covered that ground as expected, but is recovering the fuel. We may not have to worry about lifting and coasting at any stage during this race, therefore preserving that engine, giving us that extra pace through most of the race, doing what was necessary to ultimately save. My expectation regarding the ultra fuel saving, the going light race after race after race this season and last, but especially this season, I'm trying to be competitive with Sargent to help keep us in the job, and that's definitely not a lock, not a foregone conclusion. Again, other than Florsch, he's the weakest driver on the grid, so you need that much more with the car. You need that much more push with him, and we're not giving that push necessarily, though again, lighter you are, the faster you are. You are shaving off time every single lap in doing that, so it's a trade-off. Pushing allows you to overtake. Pushing allows you to be aggressive when you need to get that 1 second against another driver. Being light will constantly put you in a position to be a little bit faster, to be a little more competitive, to stay ahead of Albin, as we are doing right now with Florsch. She's very light. That extra weight loss is making a difference, helping keep her ahead of Albin, who seems to be back on the pace following that wing change. So I don't think he's necessarily losing anything, but we happen to be holding him off with a slower driver. I'm doing it a little more with Florsch than Sargent, so it may not come out balanced. But the expectation is we're going to save 1 engine. We're going to save 1 ERS component. We're going to save 1 gearbox over the course of the season. That adds up to $8.5 million. Times 2 drivers. $17 million. $17 million that we can reinvest into a significant facility upgrade. That's how we are progressing a little bit faster. Now, it does have its cost. It does have its trade-off, right? We are faster every single lap over the course of a race as we are underfueling, especially early on, and especially compared to some of the other teams. But Sargent has caught up. Zhou has pit, so one of those three guys that were ahead of us is now behind us, and you can see him back there at the start-finish line. But as we proceed, we have caught Sonoda and Bottas, and I would imagine that they're going to be a little slow now. Yeah, we're looking at 34% for Bottas, just about at the end of his stint. Gets DRS again, just as he's drifting outside of that 1 second range. It's like the DRS is just about keeping him inside. But suddenly he's at 1.1. We're going to have DRS, and he won't, but he dives off into the pits. We were behind him at the detection zone, so we should have had DRS down that straight. That has done us dirty. Where was that detection line? Because we were absolutely behind Bottas. I have to look closely to see where is the... it's right here is the detection zone. That's before pit road. We'll have to look a little more closely. Let's get on board here. And we're going to take the tight right-hander here. One more right hand. And then the line is... oh... the line is just after the pit road line. I think we'll have no problem beating those two. Obviously, Florsch, Zhou, Bottas, Piastri, Hulkenberg, all going to the end. Russell has just pit. Ocon has recently pit, and we're not competing with any others. So right now, it's about Sonoda, Sargent, and the position of Bottas and Zhou, if we can still potentially get that P13, which I really think we're going to have a decent shot at it. But she's a little bit too off the pace right now, unfortunately. Sargent gets around Sonoda, meanwhile. And yeah, that detection zone is right there to the left. Florsch, final pit stop. Let's see if we can get a 4-3. Or 2-3. Oh, and VSC. 2-3-7-3. The VSC is helping us. The VSC is absolutely helping us right now as everybody's having to slow down. It's Hamilton. That's... is that Ocon or Gasly? You know, I think the game, just knowing the game, they're going to punish Hamilton on that. But they both have a right to the corner, and Ocon doesn't turn in at all there. He's just driving straight, even though the apex is going away from him to the right. And both are out. It's Gasly, it's not Ocon. Gasly and Hamilton both out of the race. That is going to suddenly turn a potential P13 into a potential P11 for Sargent. For now, it's a P10, but of course, you know, we still have a pit stop to do, and we're talking about one lap early. Oh, no! Come on. 6.3. The benefit gone. Don't even see what it is. It's the release. It's on the release. Damn. And we're behind Bottas. We're behind Bottas by 0.3. Wow. So it put us right back where we would have been otherwise. Now we could still beat Bottas, but no benefit, no gain. Sonoda did not pit. And that absolutely brought our fuel into a happy zone, at least. It only lasts for half a lap, so we're about... I'd say that puts us at about maybe 3/4 of a lap early. We don't want to be pushing much. So, the VSC has been offset for us by the pit stop mistake, and we end up not really gaining anything. We were in the exact same position we would have been otherwise. Bottas had pit right ahead of us, and we come out right behind him. But what it did do was it got our fuel right for the rest of the race. So as much as we could have had a bigger, better benefit. And here's Sonoda pitting, so this is the one to watch out for now. Where does he come out? Was Bottas pitting early, undercut type scenario? Does it put Sonoda behind us? Do we still have at least a small gain from this one? Let's ride with Sonoda, as Sonoda is just coming back out, and he is behind us. So I was trying to click on him. I don't know why it didn't change position, but yeah, he is a ways back. That is a Red Bull behind us. We're about to get lapped. But that is Sonoda further behind that. Now, Sonoda did not have to deal with the blue flag situation, and he is like us. He's 5 seconds down. So we do gain 5 seconds. It should have been 8 or so. But we do gain, ultimately, 5 seconds out of it. So worked out, just not as well as it could have. Hulkenberg, meanwhile, though, is way up there in P10, and that's now the worry. Haas is set to score a point. We could beat 2 teams today, and so it'll be an acceptable day once we get Bottas here. So we're looking good on that front. Florsch, meanwhile, is back down to that final position. Still going balanced with her. Let's go ahead and turn that back up. She's already a lap down, so I don't think we're going to need to worry about fuel. I don't know what our consumption rate is. Let's go ahead and use Sargent to measure that as we're going to cross the start-finish line here shortly. 21.5. Kind of getting right down to 21.4 as we cross the line. Still not around him, but I don't want to push on this lap as I'm now measuring our effort. Or measuring our fuel consumption for a lap. So if I suddenly push, that's going to change things, right? DRS, I think we're going to get him right here, and we do. The overtake is done. Now that DRS, that alters the fuel use slightly also, but we're okay. We're okay. And 21.5 down to 19.9. So 1.6. 1.6. That means Florsch is good to go. She's already a lap down. Sargent's a lap down. We actually don't even need to worry about it, do we? Yeah. We're already a kilogram to the good by this point because we are a lap down. I think we can push a little bit harder to chase Piastri now. 1.1 over Bottas. We are pulling away from him and just 6 seconds now behind. Okay, down to 4.2. So we are gaining a good almost half a second a lap. At least 4/10. Florsch is about to get lapped a second time, but of course all those blue flags make it hard. 10 cars have lapped her, so 10 times she's been blue flagged, and now she's going to start that sequence again to make it 11, and it just backs you up a few seconds every time. So overall the lap length just plays a role, but at 2 laps down she's totally good. I still have her on deploy. Oops, Sargent. But now we're already just 2.2 behind Piastri. I think we've still got a decent chance of catching him. If we were that 3 seconds better off, didn't have the mistake on the pit stop, I think we'd already be caught up to him and challenging to get around. And we already know that we can push. Let's top up in the meantime, though, to have a little extra as we close in on him. 1.9 back. Maybe I want to wait until we get in DRS range, though. I think we're still gaining, though. Oh, no, it's lap 63. Oh, hello. Okay, push. I still want that P11, even though it's not going to equal a point. You never know. Something could happen in the last few laps. Hulkenberg could have a problem. Got DRS. Helps keep him ahead of us. Inside a second now, though. And now we have DRS for the first time. It's going to allow us to close up a little bit more. 7/10 behind. I know it's going to be loud, but come on, this is an exciting battle. Let's watch from Sargent's perspective. 6/10 behind. Last lap has begun. It's the last lap of the race. Shoot. We had 2 laps to go, but they don't. 4/10 behind. Okay, we know exactly where the overtake's going to happen. Somebody has spun. Somebody has spun. I don't know who it is, but somebody has spun. Oh, it's Shell. It's Shell. Just 2/10 behind. We've got a great chance to make this happen. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Coming around here, we're all over the back of him in position and DRS, and we cut to the inside, and we have the straight line speed. We are up beside him, and we should have it. We should have it. Let's watch the overtake the rest of the way from here, and we have done it. That is P11. P11. Continue to push this. We're okay. 6/10. Overtake successful. Great job there. Hulkenberg, though, grabs a point for Haas. Their second of the season. So close. So close. But 9 seconds behind Hulkenberg, right? We would have gotten Piastri earlier if we had that 3 seconds better off. Florsch was only 8 seconds behind Albon, though. So she did put up a fight there. It was definitely better. And remember, those blue flags just stretch things out once you start getting lapped. Sargent was lapped by 2 cars total in the entire field, and it impacted things. It absolutely impacted things. So just keep that in mind with Florsch and her overall times. It's not as bad as it would seem, but ultimately she lost the 2 positions that she was able to get. But those 2 positions that she got were thanks to an incident. So she never really had enough pace to beat anyone on merit. But she did make tires last. She did make it to the end, so her strategy did work out. And she's almost competitive, and we've had her beat cars on merit on the right track. This really wasn't the right track. We did not practice well. We did not qualify particularly well, but we had a good race strategy that worked, and that VSC really did help us out in 2 ways, right? It gave us the 5/10. We ended up a lap down, so that also covered off one of our... I underfueled by 2 laps. I covered off one of them, and the VSC mostly took care of the other one. But it put us in the position we needed to be competitive and beat a car we wouldn't beat otherwise. We do beat 2 teams today, so it's an acceptable outcome. It's a good day. It's a good day. Just missing the points, though. That hurts. A point for Haas, that hurts. But outside of that, it was a very good day. Sargent's position in the Drivers' Championship does not even change. Piastri drops a spot to 15th as Hulkenberg scores his first point of the season to move up 2 spots. He was behind Piastri, which means he had not finished 11th previously, but Piastri already has. So Piastri has an 11th place finish under his belt, now rated in 80, by the way. And Sargent, now rated at 78, sits behind him in the same position he was already in. So ahead of Zhou, ahead of Bottas, ahead of Albon. At least we have that, but it's a handful. It's a handful. We've still got our work cut out for us. We have got to start getting in with the points. Each Haas has finished 10th once. Tsunoda has finished 10th once. It's a real battle at the back. Piastri's helping us out with that battle, having not scored any points, but then 11 drivers have taken the top 9 spots at least every single race, and the top 10 spots all but 3 times. Pressure's on. It's definitely going to come down to points if we are going to do that little bit more, so we got to keep building that car up. We still have yet to have been to a track, though, that really suits our car as it's currently built, plays to our strengths. As costly as the mistake was, we overcame it. We finished in the same position we would have finished otherwise. We just would have been a little bit closer at the front, and that actually was our first mistake of the entire season. So we've worked really hard to keep the mistake percentage low, because being 1/10 faster on the pit stop, while nice, cutting out those mistakes, that adds up to a whole lot more time than the add a 10th together 10 times, and you've only gained 1 second. Subtract 3 seconds for one minor mistake, and you've lost 3 times as much as you had gained. So mistakes are a big deal. Following that race at the end of the month here, we have a driver development update with progress made for both drivers. Comfortable, good, solid progress. Starting with Sargent, he is +2 in adaptability, +1 in defending. Florsch, who has gained finally some lap time. Cornering improves by 1. Finally reaches a 50. That's halfway to what it could be. I mean, she's a full quarter of the way to what it could be, comparatively lower than her teammate. Even worse on braking, almost 30 points below. even her control, which is all right, is 14 points below. But smoothness, again, picks up 2 more points, up to a 65. I might just change her focus before too long if she gets that smoothness up to about a 70 plus, as there's 2 different lap time progressors, and one, there's some variables on what else, but adaptability is up to a 71. Again, that's already high enough. But her reactions to a 52. So the reactions, that's your start-stop. That's your coming out of a corner, how quickly you're able to get on the gas again. That's your off the line, how quickly you're able to get off the line. So that combination, that's lap time. That is lap time for us, and cornering. So we gained 2 points regarding lap time this time around, and it's the first time we've finally seen her progress in those areas. The points keep getting dumped in where we don't need them as badly. So this will make her a little bit faster. Also, making the car a little bit faster has been a priority, and I have some updates that have been just finished. New side pods, now on both cars, just finally done. There's only just the 2 right now. And a new underfloor on the car. I think we're about 1 day away from the second one, so Florsch will have the new underfloor as well, and those both should make us a little bit faster. One of the key factors out of both the side pod and underfloor upgrade was some top speed, and you can see at the moment right now we are 10th. We've seen some good progress. The combination, the other factors, are starting to show up in the car a little bit at this moment in time, a week before we head to Montreal. Top speed has returned to mid-table. It was as good as 9th last year before we didn't really do upgrades, partially intentionally, and set up the infrastructure stuff a little bit. But the acceleration is not last. It's at 16th now. The DRS is up to 14th. That was maybe 17th earlier. The low speed, medium speed have both climbed out of the upper back end to now 9th, so now mid-table. High speed is back up to 3rd, where we had started the season with that. Dirty air tolerance has climbed from, I don't know where we were, 16th to 10th. Brake cooling is all the way up to 9th. Engine cooling is a little better than where it started the season, maybe 15th, now 12th. And that total extra weight have been consistently at 4th this season. This is starting to look like a car capable of scoring points. Now, we're not used to the components yet, so this first race weekend may not be the best with it. But by the following race weekend, if we don't see other upgrades for other teams by that stage, we very well could, we could maybe start to compete for those points here at the tail end of the season. And also with the turn of the month, we now have 18.8 million. I might be able to spend just a little bit on facilities here. With the turn of the month and now 18 million in the bank, we're going to go ahead and spend another 8 million on what will probably be the last upgrade outside of a category. Now, what I was talking about with the last upgrade of a certain type, staff facilities, I'm not worried about scouting department at all. We don't have any scouting to do. In fact, I fired the 2 scouts that I had to save us some money. Team hub, okay, staff development would certainly be helpful, but at 80% bonus, we don't need to be spending that 6.5 million. At some stage, we absolutely will, but it's not urgent. The staff we do have is decent. The operations facilities, the hospitality, and the weather center are the only things not maxed out besides the memorabilia room, but again, that's just team attractiveness, and some morale. Morale is certainly useful, and we might eventually, it's a cheap upgrade, so when this drops in condition, we might spend that little bit of money on that memorabilia room. So I suppose that's not going to be the last, but we're really going to start cutting back as we don't need those upgrades. What we're going to be transitioning to, and obviously is showing a need as 5 of the 6 are already down on condition, and only 1, which was already down on condition, is currently actively working on an upgrade. This is where we're going to start committing, but these are much more expensive upgrades. 8 million, 10 million, 10 million, 11.5 and 11 million. So we're getting into a phase where we're going to need a good 50 million just to get them up as we are doing with the simulator right now. That's a lot of money, and that's why saving 17, or if we can even push that to 20, that's 2 upgrades in this area. So 2 upgrades can go a long ways towards developing the car more effectively, not just keeping up or making very, very small gains over the midfield, but getting a car that's going to be competitive near the front of the grid, which in the case of Florsch, she's going to lose time, but it's going to make her competitive against other cars. And hopefully, at some stage, competitive enough to at least be earning points until we eventually get to having the best car and making the push to get her to be a champion at some stage. With the upgrades on the car, we might just about have the means to push in Montreal and compete for that last point, given the right circumstances. But not necessarily, right? It's definitely not our strengths. Top speed, low speed are not our strengths. They're not bad areas for us. Medium speed is a decent area for us, but it's not our best. DRS effectiveness is okay. Definitely not very good. So, not quite our track. But I could see, in the right circumstances, that maybe, just maybe, we could compete at this race.
Formula One has arrived here in Quebec, and we're excited to get underway. Let's hope it's not going to be Groundhog Day. The local rodents have disrupted more than one race day here in the past. The Canadian Grand Prix is ready to kick off, and the only drama on the tracks we want to see is the best drivers in the world battling it out for a place on that podium. Gilles Villeneuve is a quick, free-flowing circuit in parts, with a stop-start aspect thrown in for good measure around the chicanes and hairpin bends. Medium-speed downforce will play a large part in avoiding the wall of champions and ensuring success at this iconic track. 70 laps of the Canadian Grand Prix await our drivers here in Montreal. And there's always a sense of excitement when it comes to talking about Max Verstappen.
It's a promising position for them starting in P3. They'll be looking to make the most of the slipstream.
And the time has come. Let's go racing. This is it. We're moments away now at the Canadian Grand Prix. And it's lights out and away we go.
And the race is underway, and our start setup is a little unexpected for what we're actually receiving here. For one thing, I'm underfueling by a few laps, which is not what I was planning on doing. It looks like about 1.5 kilograms per lap is what to expect on that. But Sargent ended up starting dead last. Why? Well, he qualified 19th, despite having pretty new components on the car for the most part. So, what have I done? I knew that at some stage, I would have to sacrifice Sargent. At some point. Big crash right ahead of us there. Red flag is out. It's Gasly. So one of the AlphaTauris out of our way. Looks like into the braking zone. Gasly hits the brakes. Zhou was really close behind him, and Guan Yu Zhou just could not stop in time.
Here we go once more. The track is ready, and so are the drivers. And it's lights out, and away we go.
And we are racing once again, officially now on lap number 3, with Florsch in P17 and Sargent P. Oh. They've already swapped positions here. Florsch got a good start. I'm hoping Sargent can get ahead of her so that Florsch is not holding us up. Like her to battle, but not with Sargent. I want Sargent to try to come through, because I did have high hopes, but we qualified so poorly here. So poorly that we ended up, and look at how much better our fuel is, already 2 kilograms better than it was. Oh, and then the rain is coming now? Oh no.
The rain's coming down.
Wow, okay. We were expecting rain, but the rain comes much earlier than expected. Much earlier. And that's because of the red flag. The red flag took enough time that it brought the rain much closer. We were supposed to get about 20 laps in before the rain hit, so this is going to change the race dramatically. Will anyone peel off into the pits? Let's watch from the front of the grid. Is anybody peeling off? Anybody peeling off? No? Okay, how about a little bit further back down the order? Anybody peeling off? No, not yet. No one is pitting on this first lap. But it is expected to come down pretty heavy, so it looks like we're going to get about 1 lap in, which means really we need to just full-on attack here.
We can close again.
And it's expected to rain really hard
TMS and the bus.
in just 2 minutes. And so we're going to very, very, very quickly transition from damp conditions to full-on wet conditions. It could be a rough lap for her, but being on the wets versus being on the dries, she might be as fast. 2.406 for the stop. Okay, we are finally damp. Sergeant comes in. Somebody pulls out right in front of him. We don't get that privilege. Oh, and then another problem. Are you kidding me? 2 straight pit stops for Sergeant. And then he's held up behind all these cars coming off pit road who were double stacking. So he's still waiting, still waiting, still waiting, still waiting, still waiting. 35 seconds in the pits already. 38.2 seconds, and then waiting for car after car after car after car that had all double stacked. We should have moved up the grid so much. And the fact that other cars are able to get out and you can't, it, like, I get it, when there's traffic you're gonna be held, but it's not realistic how the game manages that versus real life. It's lap 11. We are not in a position to be competitive today, and realistically, I'm kind of thinking about shutting things down soon. Rain has lifted. It's going to get light here. Circumstances could change here on lap 21. Let's check in on this was that predicted section. It's not going to, I don't know, 9 laps of intermediates plus 2 pit stops. What are you going to gain? Now it's going to come about managing the tires during that stretch, and just how much pace are you losing or how much tire are you degrading before we get back to full wet conditions. But I do think we're going to drop into intermediate conditions. But 50 seconds, we're not going to lose 50 seconds. 1 pit stop to switch to intermediates is all I want to make. I'm going to try to endure this period and stay out. I'm hoping everybody else does pit, and I'm hoping I find a way to manage this, which means overheating is going to be an issue, and we're going to be backing off very soon instead of pushing. But if we can manage it properly, we might just make this work and see ourselves move up the order. 4.8 for now. So no changes yet. And it drops below 4. It's now damp. Here's the first lap of cars coming towards pit lane. Front 3 are way out ahead. Magnussen's way behind and holding up traffic. Really, we're only 20 seconds behind Magnussen, amazingly. He's almost 20 seconds behind Stroll. It's Stroll who leads his race. The Aston Martin. No one pitting yet. Yes, no, there is one. There is one. It's Ocon. Ocon. First to dive in. Okay. Start to manage things as, yes, temperatures are starting to increase. But no changes for us now, and no changes for anybody else. No one else is pitting. It's the same 4 guys that have really gone for it. Leclerc with a lockup turn 1. Verstappen back on top ahead of Stroll. No, there are others pitting. There are others. Leclerc. And he puts on the wets knowing that it's going to get there again. So others are pitting because of the damage to the tires, and then they're going back to the wets. Not the way to go. Tough it out. You got to tough it out, and then go to the intermediates later. The rain has picked up. The rain has picked up. It's going to get better. Lap 32. For us, though, it hasn't turned into some sort of massive woohoo moment unless what has happened with Leclerc starts happening with others. Leclerc pit and put on brand new wets. Now Magnussen pits. He's still 5th. Are you kidding me? After all that, he was so far ahead that he's still in 5th place? Or he had just been passed on track by other cars. He hadn't pit. No, he did. He did pit. He's going back to the wets. He is going back to the wets. But how many guys are going to pit a second time? Or, let me rephrase that. How many guys that are on the wets that have stayed out and braved it like I have? How many of them are going to pit and put on brand new wets? Verstappen into the pits. He's going to go back to the wets. Pit, Norris. Norris has pit. He's gone to the intermediates a little bit early. Crap. You know what the problem with traffic's going to be? We're going to have a quicker pit stop. We're going to get ahead of them. And then we're going to have a quicker pit stop than them. And then we're going to sit there and wait for them to go by. Meaning we're going to be a second and a half ahead. And then we're going to be 0.3 faster or 0.2 faster on the pit stop. And then Bottas, Albon are both behind us. Sargent is now P14. We are fully ahead of 2 teams. Hulkenberg in the pits. Can we get ahead of him as well? He is not moving. He is still stationary. And now he's moving. He is moving. He's going to get the advantage of the pit exit. And he's still ahead of us. How far, though? That far. That far ahead of us. So Hulkenberg in the distance. Magnussen finally pitting somehow, amazingly, still P5, which is just insane. That's going to give Haas so many points. He's 10 seconds ahead of Hamilton. How is he doing this? Magnussen is driving the race of his life. Hulkenberg's trying to get up to temperature, and we are closing that gap very, very quickly on Hulk. Yellow flag, VSC. Oh, it's
I'm
Florsch.
not quite sure what's happened there. Let's see what happened there.
In the
Now,
wet.
this was at turn 3.
Looks like she just lost it.
Within a
It's just a
split
little
second,
lockup.
the impact's made. Now,
I don't
their
know why that
confidence
would be
will have taken a
VSC.
hit
It looks
with
like
that.
she could easily continue. It's just replace the wing, but I'm supposing that they're saying that there's suspension damage. We don't see it. We should have seen it, but the car's retired. She's the 3rd car out of the race. She was on fairly used
VSC.
components, at least. Let's hope there's
Delta
not serious
positive.
damage to what she has.
Copy.
As I have every goal of not wasting money on lap 51s. We've got about 20 laps left to race here. Currently P4, P14, that is 2 seconds. So during that VSC, we lost some ground on Hulkenberg. We dropped back a little bit, so that one didn't quite work out for us. See, that happened a lot, but I did back off a little, so I don't know if that was a factor. Either way, we now push on. Tsunoda have gotten awfully close to us as we're now 4 seconds back. So whatever reason, we have come out of this VSC really, really poor. We're in the working range. We have the fuel. We're heavy. Maybe it's because we're heavy. We're going to have to keep pushing on, I think, to try to hold off Tsunoda now, who's all over the back of us. Bottas just behind him, and then Albon a ways back. Now the main thing is I've got to hold these guys off. And I have no idea why we are suddenly insanely slow. Like, we are losing seconds a lap right now. Seconds. Sargent is... I've never seen him so far off the pace as he is right now. Back at Tsunoda finally. For whatever reason, we were just horribly, horribly off the pace on that VSC restart. And for a good lap there, made absolutely no progress. Tsunoda had dropped back a little bit from Hulkenberg, and so that put us a little ways behind there, but you can see how much ground we've already covered now, just 2 seconds behind Hulkenberg. And I think maybe what we're seeing is between these guys, we're seeing that fluctuation of backing off, pushing, backing. Oh, right behind us, Sonoda. Safety car is deployed. And there you go. That challenge is gone. Sonoda has crashed out just behind us. We already got a decent look at it, but let's see it again. Went out of the chicane there. Just goes wide. Goes wide. It looks like he's trying to challenge Sargent. And he pushes a little bit too hard through the chicane to try to get a run, and ends up understeering right into the wall. Bottas 4.5 seconds back. Not much of a threat. So now I think we are safely, maybe.
Safety car.
Oh wow, full safety car, huh?
And I respect the delta. Stay positive.
Copy.
Big question
Focus on
here.
your brake.
Lap cars may now overtake. We are going to be restarting here soon. All right, we are now racing Hulkenberg. Just 4.5 seconds back. Just 4.5 seconds. So that's giving us a real shot. Bottas is right about 2 seconds down. I'm coming out of this 2.6, 2.8. Close to me. So here we are once again on a release lap, struggling. Is it because everybody's deploying?
Make sure you give some energy.
Restart. Everybody's deploying. And we're finally in sight of Bottas. 1.6 down. We've gained a full second. We are definitely quicker. And again, I can afford to push harder than others with fresher tires. No idea how Albon is staying up with me so well, though, when I'm closing in on his teammate rather quickly. Looks like he's harvesting.
Over the finish line.
Oh, come on. Come on. We're not going to get him. We're not going to get him straight. We'd get him maybe turn one here, but we didn't get him. I gave that position up. I thought we were going to have a couple more laps of racing than what we ended up with. That safety car took a long time. We came within 0.2 of a second, so one more lap would have been plenty to get that back. I also forgot that we were going to have more cars between us, so that by the time we release, we're going to be further back. They pushed to use their batteries on the first 2 laps. There's just XYZ, and I missed the XY, thinking about the Z, and it just offset a little bit, so I gave up. That track position was not worth it. I missed a couple details when I thought of, hey, let's be bold, let's be aggressive, let's go for it. We'll easily overtake him. We're faster than him. We'll have brand new tires. They all had newish tires as well, so it was, in hindsight, not a good move. That is going to do it for this episode, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.